Call our meeting to order at 9:33. Let's go ahead and get started. It's been a second since we were virtual, so just got to get my bearings together just a little bit here. And Miss McGee, I can't figure out why you are so large on my screen.
Oh, please don't make that happen. Make that change.
I don't know if
You must have pinned me somehow. Unpin me.
Wait a second. And then Zoom did an update. Like, I'm a little fish out of water right now. I'm like, why is she so big and I can't see the rest of the group?
Maybe toggle over the three little dots and see if like if I'm pinned, maybe unpin me.
No. I don't know. All right, we're just
I'm
gonna
gonna
go.
go out. I'm gonna go out and come back in.
Oh my gosh, you don't need
Melita,
yes.
at the top of your screen, you'll probably see a view
Yeah, here
tab.
we go. There we go.
Okay.
I was just like, yeah.
Hit gallery.
Thank you, Darren. All right,
Darren.
all right, so let's go ahead and get started for the sake of time. Do we have any guests joining us today? Any guests joining us today?
Melita,
Yes.
could Dr. Taylor introduce her dog?
No, because both the dog and the cat are in doggy and kitty heaven.
Oh, they have crossed the Rainbow Bridge.
Yes, they have.
All right. And so I see that Elliot is joining us today versus Sean. So welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yep. And then do we Kelly's our new member joining us today.
He is with us.
Yep. All right. So go ahead and introduce yourself and welcome to PSTEB.
Hi, everyone. Ooh, excuse me. I'm actually just getting over strep throat right now. This is one of my first meetings back, so you'll have to excuse my voice. But I'm not welcoming myself. Hello, greetings. How are you? My name is Garima Bhatt Hanley. I'm so thrilled to be here, and yeah, thanks for having me. Look forward to working with all of you.
Welcome to PSTEB. So I'm gonna ask for a little grace today because the Zoom update has me all, just a little out of whack today. So asking for a little grace. But welcome to PSTEB. You are joining a phenomenal group of educators and instructors and friends of education. There is a little bit of a learning curve with PSTEB, so please ask questions. Don't feel like you can't ask questions. Please ask questions to clarify. Coming into this, you will often need like the background information of something and how we got to this decision and why we were here. So please feel free to ask questions. Everyone knows that this is how we are. Because we have a new member, if I would like just a moment for everyone to just reintroduce themselves a little bit, just so that you get a warm welcome. So I'll go first. I'm the chair. Melita, I feel like I've been around for, I don't know, 9 or 10 years, and I am hailing from Howard County, and I represent MSEA. Darren, I'll have you go next.
Well, hi, and welcome to the board. I'm Darren Hornbeck. I'm a teacher at Linganore High School in Frederick County, and I'm the vice chair of PSTEB, and I'm here on behalf of MSEA. And I'll call on Debbie next.
Good morning, all. Welcome. I'm Debbie Gertland. My day job is I'm a professor of special education at Towson University, and I'm one of the higher ed reps that represent MACD for Colleges of Teacher Education. And who are you representing?
I'm representing this Senate president, taking over for Amy Wilson. Great to meet y'all.
So Debbie, we're going to do old school. So now you call on a friend to go next.
Okay, I'm going to call on mine. Next to me is Chris.
Good morning, everyone. Chris McGee here. I work day job, Frostburg State University at the Hagerstown Center. So I'm at a satellite campus. I run our Masters of Arts in Teaching program, which we are full blown into the new cohort. And I represent MATE. And so I'll go with my partner in crime from MATE, which is Winona.
I'm Winona Taylor, and I also represent MATE and a higher ed representative on this board. I'll call on our other MATE partner, Dion Kirby.
Hello, and good morning. I'm Dion Carbeam. I'm also higher education. I'm representing MATE. As my two previous colleagues, I'm at Coppin State University in Baltimore, Maryland. I'm the Chief Information Officer, Vice President of Information Technology, formerly technology person within the school system. And Dr. Terrell Shockley, I want to call on you to go next.
Okay, good morning. Garima, welcome. Really a pleasure to meet you. My name is Ebony Terrell Shockley. I am the Associate Dean for Educator Preparation and Undergraduate Studies at the University of Maryland, College Park. I'm also a full clinical professor where I study underrepresented students, and the teachers in STEM literacy and exceptional education. And I am representing MACD, just like Debbie and MACD. You know how many acronyms we have, right, in education. Maryland Association of Colleges of Teacher Education. And like many of our higher education colleagues, although I'm in higher ed, I am a former teacher. And so I always want people to know that. And so I am going to call on, let's see. Well, did you meet Kelly? Let's call on Kelly.
Thank you. So I have had the pleasure of meeting Garima in one of her past lives. So I'm super excited that she's joined the board. Hi, Garima. I'm Kelly Meadows, Assistant State Superintendent for the Division of Educator Effectiveness. And I will turn it over to Melissa.
Hi, I'm Melissa Carpenter. I'm a 5th grade teacher in Charles County, and I am on the board to represent MSDE and MSDA. Oh my goodness, MSEA, all those letters. And I'm going to turn it over to Joy.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Garima and I have known each other a long time, so good to see you again. But I'm Joy Bacon. I teach English at Baltimore School for the Arts, and I'm on PSTEB on behalf of the Baltimore Teachers Union. And I will call on Karen Yoho.
Thank you, Joy. Hello, Garima. I'm Karen Yoho. I'm on the Board of Ed in Frederick County, and I represent MABE, Maryland Association of Boards of Ed. I was previously a teacher in Frederick County, so welcome. And Melita's absolutely right. There's a learning curve. This is my second go round, second term on here, and so just getting up to speed now, I feel.
Karen, call on someone.
I dropped the ball. Let's see. Who haven't we heard from? Amy?
Yep.
Yes. There we go.
I'm Amy Poirier. I'm a principal at Shepherd Pratt School in Rockville, and I represent the non-public. And I'll call on who hasn't gone. Elliot?
I think Stephanie.
Stephanie? Okay.
I am here. Hi, I'm Stephanie Farmer. I'm representing Maryland Association of Secondary School Principals, and I am a principal in Baltimore City Public Schools. And I'll turn it over to who's left?
I think
Nicole?
Alex. Yes, Alex.
Did Nicole go? Oh, okay, go ahead.
I'll jump in. I'm Alex Cambra. I'm the Director of Program Approval here, non-public school approval and educator preparation program approval. I've had the pleasure of working for many years with Garima, and I'm super happy to see her back. Kelly kept this as a surprise for me. So when I saw your face this morning, I ran in there and started yelling. So welcome to the board. It's so good to have you. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Sophia Fitzpatrick, to say hello.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Sophia Fitzpatrick. I'm the Director of Licensure here at MSDE. Nice to see everyone. And I guess I will shoot it over to Dr. Keys. I don't know if Jason heard me, but if there's anyone else who hasn't gone, you can go ahead.
They're still connecting the audio, so there could be a little bit of a delay.
Well, I'll jump in. I'm Elliot Schoen. I'm with the Maryland Attorney General's office, and I'm filling in for Sean Fitzgerald, who is the counsel to PSTEB.
Oh.
So I know we have.
Kristen, you want to introduce yourself? You were coming on just as we were getting to you for intros.
Nicole Crowder hasn't introduced herself.
Seems like Dr. Keys may be having some sound issues and perhaps Nicole is as well. So I will let everyone know that Nicole is our assistant here at the Division of Educator Effectiveness, and she helps staff this board. So she is our note taker, and she is the person, Garima, that you're going to reach out to if you ever have questions about like travel reimbursement, parking, logistics, getting to the agency. Nicole is going to be your contact.
I'm Jason Keys. I'm sorry, it cut out when someone called on my name, so I've just been sitting here. So I'm Jason Keys. I'm the manager of Educator Preparation Program Approval. I work for Kelly Meadows here at MSTE. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think we got everybody. Just, a little throwback there to when we were classroom teachers, classroom instructors. So a little throwback there. Do we have public comment today?
No public comment today.
Thank you. No public comment. All right. So, Kelly, are you going to give our state board update?
I can. So I did include a summary that Mr. Hands had provided to me with the materials that I sent out. I would like to highlight, just to give this board an update now, that during the last state board meeting, they did approve permission to publish all of the regulations that this board provided permission to publish the preceding month. So that is going to go to the Maryland Register as the next step for 30 days. And then, as you all know, it will come back to first this board, and then this board will be asked to adopt or make changes based on that public comment. And then should this board adopt, it will go back to the state board, who will have the second opportunity to adopt. And if all goes well, those regulations will be adopted. So that is where we are with our regulations. As far as the rest of the summary goes, I will let you all review it. And if you have any questions, please let me know, and I will certainly filter them through Mr. Hands.
Okay. All right. So communication update. Garima, this is kind of where this would be the time that kind of, I don't want to say concerns, but maybe questions from your constituent groups or stakeholder groups as it pertains to PSTEB. We do try to keep it to items that are within our purview, or sometimes there might be, this is the opportunity sometimes to ask a rhetorical question concerning the work that we do here. I'm actually going to start. So in terms of my communication update today, two things. One, I have a bit of a toothache. I am doing really well right now on Advil. But I will be I will be leaving the meeting early because, when you call the dentist and they say you can come at this time, you do not say no. So I will be leaving out the meeting early. I know I'm talking really well, but if I start slurring or something, someone please let me know. I'm not having a medical emergency. So I did want to come back and update. I did have the opportunity to meet with Liz. And so she came a while ago, and then there was some concerns in terms of the social work and things like the social work requirements and special ed. So I did have the opportunity to meet with her. And so I just wanted to pretty much share, I'm going to really summarize what we talked about. And so it was a lot with, she understood the challenges, but kind of understanding where she was coming from and the need to kind of have that background and the role of a social worker in terms of the building. So she did understand the challenges that districts may face, but also know that this particular person or job title, they are going to be working directly with students, and that they should have the background number for it. We were looking at a little bit of data. And so looking at potentially how many people and looking at the coursework. And so some things that we talked about was I believe what we suggested before, Kelly, with the social work. What did we say? I think it was a temporary licensure when we were talking about the coursework. We were talking about that. Also, there was some loose conversations. And so this was a little bit of brainstorming out loud. It's not necessarily like if we did this, this would be something that would be okay with. Again, just brainstorming out loud. It was one of the questions was, does MSDE have the coursework available so that they could take this? And that could there be some type of like MOU for the ed prep programs or the IHEs, some type of accelerated something? So this was just brainstorming out loud, like, is this some type of possibility? The temporary licensure, but they definitely felt like that it was important because as a social worker, there is going to be direct contact with neurodivergent students. And so that background knowledge would be needed. So that would be my update from that. Any questions or any comments on that in terms of that conversation? Oh, yes, Kelly.
So given that, would it be wise to take another look at what we had reviewed? I think it was 2 months ago, where it was the memorandum that I think we listed out 3 or 4 options, one of them being the temporary professional. Should we circle back to that discussion during our August meeting?
Yes, I think it would be beneficial because I think some of the things that we talked about here was that there's a difference because social workers are Department of Health, correct? Versus MSDE, and that the two organizations, I think that's the right word I want to use, are not necessarily aligned because they're two different entities. And so we were talking more about the temporary, but then thinking about what are some of the barriers that the districts are facing with this, as well as is candidate the right word, Kelly? I want to use candidate would be like the candidates that they would kind of encounter. And so that's why the question was, is there a course? We know that MSDE does have some courses. Is there a course that I guess the districts could, kind of say, well, we know that you need this, but, here's a course that MSD already has, or is it something that, the IHEs have, or just again, brainstorming out loud. We weren't saying that these were solutions to the problems, but just kind of saying, is this possible? Is this already there? Because often MSDE does have a course or something already. And so we were just brainstorming, like, do we know the answers to these questions? Is this possible? Is it a potential partnership with the IHE? So we were just trying to think of some things, but definitely felt like it was important for a social worker to have that coursework as their direct contact with the student.
So I will definitely note to bring that back as an agenda item in August, and we can re-review that memo, and we can certainly provide answers to a lot of the questions that you're asking.
Okay. So yes, I will definitely, and like I said, it was just a brainstorming out loud. I did want to take the opportunity to hear her concerns and kind of share our concerns from that meeting as a board and representing the board, and then just kind of talking it out because I didn't necessarily know all of the concerns. I know what was stated in a public comment, but I wanted to hear a little bit more detail and kind of give the perspective as chair representing our board and what some of the concerns were here for the board, and really concerns, but also barriers. So we can circle back to that in August. I will actually circle back to Liz. Hopefully we can find another time that we can meet before August, or just so that we can kind of get a feel for this is where we are. And then someone, was it Joyce Spain? Yeah, she's not here today. I definitely think she had the concern. So before we come back to our August meeting, just in case she doesn't get to watch the recording of the meeting, definitely I'll reach out to her because I know she definitely had some concerns with it. And then anyone else has, in terms of their communication update, anything else they would like to share with the board? Well, everybody's quiet today. No updates today. All right, seeing no updates, let's move on. Any announcements? Any announcements? All right. Everyone is in an air-conditioned area. I'm not used to us being so relaxed and laid back here. All right. Let's jump right. Kelly, are you ready to, can we jump right into the work group updates? All right, let's jump right in.
Absolutely. So I will start with an update on the administrator licensure work group, and I'm actually going to ask Darren to tag team this with me because he is also on the work group. We have met 4 times, I believe, and we're meeting again next week, and then we have a meeting scheduled the week after. I don't think we're going to be able to wrap up this month. I think we're going to go into August, but hopefully we can have that work done by the end of the summer. We have had great participation in the work group, really, really wonderful deep conversations, looking at a lot of data and research and nationwide context, regional context. So once we have some solid recommendations, we will be back to this board to do a formal presentation. Darren, did you want to add anything?
No, I think that's a good summary. And Dr. Taylor, you're on that group as well, correct?
Oh, that's right, Dr. Taylor.
Yes.
As well.
Yes.
Did you have anything to add as well?
No. But we've only met 3 times.
Was it 3 times?
3
Feels
times.
like 10. Just kidding.
Yeah, I know. Our 4th one is coming up.
Next week. And then the other work group that I would like to provide an update for, and I'm actually going to turn it over, I'm going to ask Ms. Canberra to provide a short update, is the new P20 Collaborative Recruitment and Retention Committee.
Yeah, thank you. So we have, this collaborative work group has LEA representation, IAP representation. We've got MHEC, obviously MSDE, AIB, University Systems of Maryland, MICUA. We have MLDS. We have great representation in this group, and I think it's probably going to continue to grow a little bit. We only had our first meeting on June 13th. We sort of set out for the mission of the group and the goals of the group, which are to identify barriers to recruitment of a diverse, workforce. What are the barriers? Let's sort of focus on, in the first meeting, what were the specific barriers that everybody came up with to recruiting and retaining. We tend to get into solutions pretty quickly, so we did keep it focused. It was a really good discussion. We met for 90 minutes. Themes were sort of, finances always for candidates, unpaid internships. There was a lot of discussion about the financial barriers initially. We then sort of got into praxis assessment barriers, and then branding, the branding of the profession, how people see the profession, what social media portrays. And so that's sort of what we identified in the beginning. We stuck with our mission for the first meeting. We are going to meet again in September for our second meeting. We expect this work group to go on. I mean, this isn't going to be a 3 and 4, 5 and done. It's going to go on for a while. We're going to identify some lines of effort in our next meeting in September, where I think folks will kind of, group together with their areas of expertise or interest, so we can have meetings with not such a large group every single time, and then come back to the larger group and kind of report out on that. I know that the next meeting we're going to have probably on September 13th. You all are hearing it before the work group members are. That's probably the date that we're going to have it. And we're going to probably start that meeting with some presentations about research, and a bit of a discussion from AIB members on ideas for rebranding, internships. There's a couple of topics that we said we wanted to hear about next. So that's our current plan. And like I said, I think it's going to probably go for a while. So we'll come back with updates as we have them each month. We won't have an update though until probably the October meeting for you.
So Alex, just for Garima, like, can you just tell us a little bit of the background? We know that they're working on barriers for recruitment, but just a little background about the work group and how it kind of came to be.
Sure. So, so there are obviously a lot of work groups and summits and groups that come together throughout the state to look at these barriers. We participated, MSDE, we were sort of invited to be participants in a Southern Maryland summit at some point. I know University of Maryland had a meeting. So there's lots of these groups that go on all the time. This particular group, this particular collaborative, I think came out of a meeting that our superintendent had with the deans and directors. Ebony's shaking her head. Were you? Okay, so that's accurate, right? And then the request was sort of just to work collaboratively and get all the voices that needed to be at the table so we could work as a larger group statewide on this. So that's how it came to be. It was just a request for the superintendent to sort of form this. So Kelly and Jason and I have been working to put this together and sort of facilitate this group. We're working really closely with the Dean's Council. So Dr. Jetter and Dr. Marinac are both working with us to plan and to lead the groups. So that's it. Do you have any questions, Graham, about it? Okay.
That's great.
Yeah. Did we have any other work group updates? No. All right, we are rocking and rolling today. One thing that I did want to mention that unfortunately we, as you probably saw with the agenda, we were supposed to do the science and reading presentation. So we are going to move that August or possibly September. Right, Kelly? Possibly.
Apologies. I was hoping to have nailed down a date by today. I can email the board when I have it, but it will either be August or September.
All right. So the June minutes were sent out in your information for today's meeting. So go ahead and take another minute to review them again, and then we will go ahead and entertain a motion to approve the June meeting minutes. I'm sorry. Karen? Oh, I think you're still on mute.
And I clicked it. Dr. Shockley had her hand up first, I believe.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I missed it. I was looking down at the minutes again. Go ahead, Dr. Shockley.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Again, I wondered about just a point of information that we could clarify under the communication update for people who use the minutes, instead of watch the whole meeting. And Dr. Allen discussed the items that had been remitted via email. The first being about Montgomery County Public Schools, which actually I sent it as an announcement because it was really just, hey, watch the meeting, this is going on. But the second bullet stating that, or the third line where it says that Chair Kitchen stated it might not be in the board's purview to handle that. Someone who didn't watch the full meeting, I don't think they would just have to make a lot of assumptions and it would not be clear. So I wonder if it would be easy for our administrator colleague to just paste what the actual announcement was, and then the readers could just have clarity. The announcement was that PSTEB members may want to watch the meeting because of the open contracts that were rescinded. There was no action suggested.
So, I guess question for clarification for council. I feel like at one point when I was as a member on this board, it was something about putting too many details in our minutes. Can you speak on that? Darren, do you remember that? At one point on this board, it was something about the amount of details that we were putting in our minutes. So Dr. Shockley, I'm not disputing what you're requesting, but I do want to check with council because I know we were given the advice about the level of detail in one time, and I see Dr. Taylor shaking her head. So
that makes sense.
That's why.
They just won't know what that is, Chair Kitchen, when they read it. So
yeah,
maybe if
we get the what is it, written announcement from Dr. Allen, because that would be I remember that.
Yeah.
Advise. So we can maybe spell out that, but I don't think we necessarily need to put in the
announcement that I sent. Okay, whichever way, just so the readers understand a little bit more about how the discussion, but that's not too much and within the purview. Since it is under communication update instead of announcement, it should kind of fit that. So either way, I just wanted to call it, and we might want to think about how we could resolve that for our readers.
Miss Yoho, can you hold off for a second because I want to see if Elliot has something to say with that.
Okay, well, let me ask quite a clarifying question because I don't know exactly what advice you were given, but I know this meeting is being recorded. Are the recordings of the meeting posted on the PSTEB website? Okay, yes. Then generally under law, those would be the official minutes. And so anyone could go and take a look at the video and see the video. So since you have the videos posted, you don't need to have full detail in your minutes, but you can telegraph to someone, hey, if you're interested in more information about this, please see the video at the discussion point, or if it came up in the last meeting. Does that make sense?
So you're saying for that, which doesn't really address the announcement. It suggested the announcement or that the update offered some action, which it didn't. It's about the discussion, which was really important. And so what you're suggesting is that after that, there's a comment or a statement that reads that the reader might want to check the video?
Well, it's certainly up to, go on.
So I think that should just be revised, that where it says Ms. Kitchen stated it may not be in the board's purview to handle honoring open contracts. That was mentioned, I'm loosely doing the wording here, to give some detail what that is. So Ms. Kitchen stated it may not be in the board's purview to handle the budget review in Montgomery County honoring open contracts, so that it gives a little bit more detail what that is talking about. And I guess if they wanted more detail, then they could go to the. Does that make more sense to everyone? Is that fair? Okay. So Ms. Crowder, can we revise the minutes just to add in explaining what that is, that it is referring to what was going on at Montgomery County about honoring open contracts?
I'm taking some notes. Is it appropriate to say Ms. Kitchen noted that it isn't under the board's purview to weigh in on LEA contracts? Is that what it should say? What I do agree.
Yes. I was trying to.
That's good. But the announcement was not about weighing in on LEA contracts and that contract, which is why I was asking for more information.
Yeah, I'm actually wondering if we should just strip everything out after the word hires, so that this was the intent of the communication and not kind of get into the substance of the conversation that happened to follow after. And I think it's a great idea. Thank you, Elliot. I'm going to ask Nicole to, effective, I guess, these minutes. Let's just have a statement maybe in the beginning of the minutes that says, basically this is the purpose of these minutes. However, should you want more detail, please visit, and we'll put the link to the webpage where you can watch the video.
Mhm. Because I believe Dr. Allen wanted to bring it to our attention because we've had so many conversations about recruitment and that this could hinder some recruitment. So I
Yes.
definitely, in terms of communication update, it was in our purview to kind of hear about how this could potentially hinder recruitment. But in
Mhm.
terms of who's right, who's wrong, we can't definitely get into that.
Oh, absolutely. That's correct. Yeah. I just feel like, anyway, so I agree. I agree with all suggested revisions.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Now, Karen, thank you for being patient. Back to you.
No problem. And mine is not nearly as exciting. It's just Dr. Bolson's name is spelled two different ways down on page 3 under the motions. And it should be Bulson. It's one of the places it's spelled with an O.
Thank you. Darren?
Yeah, I was just, you had asked about the perspective on the advice we got on doing the minutes. And just for anybody who wasn't on the board at that time, several years ago, there was a concern that there was a potential miscommunication between our board and the state board regarding some policies that we were working out. And this was long before we were using streaming or recording meetings and posting them. So we had evolved almost into a system where, to alleviate that concern, our minutes started to evolve into something that almost looked like transcripts, like so-and-so said, and it looked like a transcription. And legal counsel at the time said that was unusual, that minutes are not usually constructed that way, that they're generally summaries, but not necessarily that detailed. So we started to scale them back a little bit. And I just wanted to offer that to give you some perspective as to where that came from. Because I think now what you all worked out, I think, is a great happy medium.
So, Garima, Darren is unofficially the board historian. Unofficially.
Love that context. Keep it coming, Darren.
Board historian.
That means I'm an old timer on the board. It's what that
It's really helpful. It's very helpful.
Darren, you remember this? Because I remember, legal counsel saying that, and he's right. Like, see, Darren filled in the details because I remember there was a reason why we started making our minutes much shorter, and so Darren filled in the details. Thank you, Darren. Kelly.
I had just raised my hand to make that comment about the minutes. I'm good.
Great. So let's see where we are. Oh, okay. So without objection, I'm like, where are we? Without objection, can we approve the June meeting with the revisions that was just stated? Seeing no objections, the June meeting minutes are approved with the revisions and edits we discussed. All right, so now we are super ahead of schedule. So I would say, I know we just started, but I would say this is a good time to do a stretch break. If you have an Apple Watch, it's probably pinging for you to stand up. Let's take a 10-minute break. Yeah. All right, let's take a 10-minute break. On my chair watch, I have 10:11. Let's come back at 10:21. right. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. So Kelly, before we do the teacher supply and demand presentation, because I know I need to log off soon, can we just talk about the August agenda? And then when I need to just kind of step out, I can, and we don't have anything outstanding on the agenda that I need to look at. In terms of our August agenda, we would have our set items that are at the top of the agenda for Karima. So which would be our call to order, public comment, state board update, communication update, announcement. I would like to keep the work group updates in there in our agenda, the approval of the minutes. And then I'm going to loosely say the science of reading update if you have the date. If not, we'll know that it'll be pushed to September. But then, and then Kelly, help me with the correct wording of it. What we discussed earlier with the social worker, special ed requirement, is that the right way of saying it? Licensure?
Yeah.
No, not licensure.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's licensure. So the way I'll list it is the initial licensure requirement for specialists and administrators, which is the special education course.
Okay.
And then just so you know, I did hear from my colleagues, the science of reading will be in September.
September. Okay.
So we have some more time to play with for August.
Right. Because I definitely, now would the department be doing the presentation, or would it be someone from the science of reading community?
It is the department. I don't know exactly who will make up that team or if they'll have anyone from the community, but I know that it's being facilitated by our department.
Okay. Okay. I have a question, but I'll wait. Maybe I'll email it to you offline, just because if it's already going to be covered in the presentation, I don't want to bring it up here because we're already going to cover it. But I do have a few questions, but I'll send those to you offline.
Okay.
And then of course we will the approval of the minutes, and then our September. And just note as a heads up, our September meeting is not the first Thursday, it is the second Thursday. And so that is September 12th. September 12th. Is that right?
Yes.
September 12th. So then our September meeting is the 12th. Our August meeting will also be virtual. So Garima, most of the time we're in person, but sometimes the group is too large and we won't fit. Other times there are just some technical difficulties, but just to allow for the flexibility of the group and vacations, and as instructors, educators, and friends of education, just to allow some flexibility if people would like to take the call while they are out of town or vacation. So that's why we are virtual. But in September, we will be back in person. Okay. I don't need a motion to approve the minute, the meeting agenda, right? No. Okay. So that is done for our meeting. Now we can go to the teacher supply and demand presentation that was in your materials. With that, and then Kelly, do you want us to ask questions along the way, or do you want us to hold the questions to the end? Because we can get a little robust, so I just want to know what.
Yeah, that's a good question. So what I will ask, because I'm sure you will have a lot of questions, is if you wouldn't mind noting them. Let's wait until the end so we really can just open it up for discussion, and then I can go back in the presentation and show slides again. But I think it's probably a good idea if we get through it first for this particular presentation.
Okay. So I guess just a note, like, might be easier if you tell Kelly the slide number. So like that way she knows what slide to go back to. And just a reminder that when we are virtual, we cannot use the chat because this is a public meeting that's being live streamed. And since the audience cannot see what's in the chat, we cannot put something in the chat. So if you have even if it's something like a thumbs up, we do need to go back and kind of read what's in the chat. So do not place anything in the chat. So that we can make sure that the public has access to everything that is here on our live meeting.
You ready?
We're ready.
All right. You can see my presentation, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's do this. Okay, so today our plan is to take you through these 4 areas. This is our it was last provided, I think, in 2022. So we did not have an update last year. We're a little bit late to the game this year, but this is very similar to the supply and demand presentation that we provided to this board, I'm going to say in maybe February of 2023. We're going to focus, first I'll give you a short overview, and then we're going to focus on demand. We're going to transition to supply and distribution, and then talk a little bit about Maryland's current initiatives and opportunities. So just to give you some context, as of October 2023, and we do collect staff data in the fall of each school year. So the most recent staff data that we have is from the beginning of the 23-24 school year. As of October of last school year, there were 63,220 teachers across Maryland. And you can see how they are distributed here on this map. So taking a look at race and ethnicity trends, there has been a little bit of diversification very gradually, but as you can see, the teacher workforce in Maryland does remain predominantly white. If we dig a little deeper into first-year teachers, who are we bringing into the profession, we see that the percentage of first-year teachers who are Black African American and Hispanic Latino have more than doubled in the past 10 years. But again, you can also see that more than half of Maryland first-year teachers are white. Now, if we start comparing student and teacher race ethnicity trends, and you can see each of these tables is a race ethnicity with the teachers in blue and the students in orange. And you can see for every single race, it is persistent over the past 5 years. We're not seeing a lot of change in the trends in the last 5 years as far as disparity is concerned. Another look, this is a statewide look. So if you look at the orangish reddish boxes, they are the teachers of color, and the blue arrows are the students of color. And we can see that statewide, there is a gap of percentage between students of color and teachers of color. The average is 36 percentage points. However, you can also see that it is variable. It varies significantly at the LEA level, anywhere from 4 to 52 percentage points. And again, this is last year's data, this past school year that we just completed. Focusing now on attrition, and you can see that on the left-hand side, we have defined what it means by school attrition, district attrition, or LEA attrition, and state attrition. But the takeaway here is in the most recent year, almost 11% of Maryland teachers did not return to teaching in the state. If we dig down by LEA, we can see that, again, school year 23-24, 12% of teachers did not return to teach in the same district or LEA from the prior school year. And again, we see a lot of variability here across LEAs. And then finally, looking at attrition by years of experience, we continue to see that new teachers, which is defined as having less than 3 years of experience, are most likely to leave the teaching profession, with about 1 in 7 leaving. And by race ethnicity, again, we continue to see that attrition rates remain highest for Black African American teachers. So just to give you a little bit of context for this slide, in Maryland, as part of the staffing collection, we do ask LEAs to provide reasons for teachers exiting. And this is self-reported data from the teacher who has left. And so looking at that data, we see, if you take a look at the pie chart, the biggest reason people cite when they provide this information to the employer is other voluntary resignation. So we've broken out what that could potentially, the codes for that other voluntary resignation in the staffing report. And you can see on the bar that it's studying, moving, home responsibilities, which includes maternity and marriage, personal illness, dissatisfied with teaching, other, which is the majority of how that's broken up, and cause unknown. So really, when you're looking at this data, we don't have the answers that we would like, because as we drill deeper down, we keep getting into that other reason. So this is something that I think we still have to work on making more meaningful. It is interesting, and I will point out that only 3% actually cited that they were dissatisfied with teaching. So turning to vacancies, here's a bit of good news. During the beginning of the 23-24 school year, we saw fewer vacancies. We're starting to see that trend come down. We will be collecting our next round of vacancy data this October. So looking forward to seeing if that trend continues. And the reason that I've only provided 3 years here is because we started this collection during the 2021 school year. Another bit of good news is that we are continuing to see an uptick in enrollment into both our traditional and alternative Maryland teacher preparation programs. And so we're starting to see it come back up and moving toward that 2011, 2012 levels that you see. And that's why I've provided 10 years for that purpose, so you can really see the movement over the last decade. Now, taking a deeper look into Maryland teacher preparation programs, these are completers, so individuals who have completed Maryland teacher preparation programs. And we have 3 years of data for you, again, because we changed our data collection methods in 2019. So we didn't want to mix apples and oranges. But what we see here, and this is what we continue to see, this is what we saw in 2022 as well, is that our alternative program completers, our alternative programs produce a greater proportion of teachers of color, particularly Black and African American completers. And then taking a look at the gap between supply and demand, and by demand on this slide, we're just talking about vacancies. So we went back to the 22-23 school year to look at because we had to base this based on the completer data that we had for our educator preparation programs. So this was 22-23. At the beginning of that school year, we had 2,144 vacancies. So again, it started to come down last year. This is the year before. Preceding that year, who was in the pipeline to come into the LEAs, is the data that you see here for alternative and traditional programs. So we're looking at 21-22 completer data. So as of that moment in time, we had a gap of about 230. And that's, again, for vacancies only. We're going to turn to conditional license in a moment here, and you're going to see that there are more than one ways to determine shortage, right? So one way is the vacancies. We haven't been able to fill those positions at the start of the year, but there's also the measure of how many conditionally licensed folks do we have in the classroom, because districts were not able to hire a professionally licensed teacher. So if you look at both of those measures together, it's a lot larger. Again, we'll get there in just a moment. Really quickly, licenses issued trend. So there's a caveat here. This slide is showing you applications from anywhere in the world, right? It's not just Maryland applicants, people that are living in Maryland. It's not just individuals that are working in Maryland. We accept applications in our licensure system from anywhere. And as you all know, it's a $10 fee only if you're approved. So we do have a lot of applicants. However, we do see that over the past few years, we have seen significantly fewer applications for initial licensure. So that is what we have here. In the school year 21-22, 63% of applicants who qualified for licensure were prepared out of state. And then here's that conditional licensure trend data. So as you can see, we're climbing steadily. I will point out, however, that if you'll recall, the State Board of Education did grant a waiver of conditional license requirements, right, where we see this huge uptick, right? So this is most likely a combination of the exacerbation of the teacher shortage, but I would be remiss if I didn't remind you that we gave all of our conditional teachers basically an opportunity to remain in the classroom by waiving the renewal requirements for that license and extending that license an additional 2 years due to the pandemic and the difficulty of obtaining coursework and assessments during that time. So we did expect to see a more significant increase here, but as you can see, it was extremely significant. So right now, at the beginning of last school year, we started the school year with 10% of our Maryland teacher workforce being conditionally licensed across the state. And it is variable across LEAs. Looking at the demographic trends, this is the good news. Our conditionally licensed teachers are our most diverse population of teachers. So this is an opportunity. It continues to be an opportunity to recruit and retain teachers of color who have already volunteered to be in the profession. So at this point, it really turns into how do we support and retain these individuals? So taking a look into teacher qualifications based on high and low poverty schools, this is going back to the 2022-2023 school year, because that is the most recent data that we had at this time. So what you're going to see is when we look at inexperienced teachers and out of field teachers, and by that I mean teachers that are licensed professionally, but they are teaching in an area that is outside of their licensure, another way to determine shortages, and teachers with emergency and provisional licenses, which in our world means that conditional or the resident teacher. Those two licenses in Maryland are considered provisional licenses. The terminology there is terminology from ESEA. You're going to see that there's a significant difference in where those teachers are placed, meaning that they are more likely placed in high poverty schools. One more slide on this, teacher qualifications with students of color. Again, we're going to see a significant difference in percentage points. Those inexperienced, out of field, and teachers teaching with the conditional or resident teacher license are more likely to be teaching in schools with a high percent of students of color. Now let's turn to National Board Certified Teachers. As hopefully everyone knows, the career ladder for educators is the first submission for career ladders by the LEAs was due July 1st. Of this year. Second is coming next year. And that career ladder is really the foundation of it is built on the national board certification, preparing our state licensed teachers to become nationally board certified. And then they take that role of being the teacher leaders in our districts. So taking a look at where we were with national board teachers as of October 2023, there were a little over 1,600 national board certified teachers actively teaching in Maryland public schools. I say actively teaching because according to the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards, there are 3,200 NBCTs residing in Maryland. But the 1,600 number comes from our staffing collection, which is reported by our LEAs. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't more MBCTs that are not teaching, but they are employed with our districts. They would not be represented here. What's represented here are those individuals who are eligible to be on the career ladder for educators. As you can imagine, since the blueprint went into effect in February 2021, we have seen a massive increase in interest and participating in the fee support program for national board certification. So this, as a reminder, is the program where the state pays 2/3 of the costs associated with national board certification and the district pays the other 1/3. So it's completely covered for the candidate with the exception of the annual registration fee of $75. So as you can see, Blueprint establishes the salary increases in 21, 22, and then we've seen this exponential growth in participation. And we expect that to continue, not only because of the career ladder, but during the 2024 legislative session, this program was expanded to include school-based administrators, instructional specialists at the school level, and principals, vice principals. So we do expect to have a whole nother cadre of type of educator who will now be participating in this fee incentive program. All right, so then finally, the last portion of this presentation is looking at, what's happening right now with regard to initiatives and opportunities in Maryland with regard to supply and demand. And as I mentioned before, the career ladder is really huge. It is to be adopted now. The AIB has the submissions, and so the next step will be for the AIB and the department to review those submissions and communicate with our LEAs. And so we assume that our LEAs will begin to have these career ladders in their district. This particular round of submissions really focused on the first 3 levels that you see on the career ladder on the right side of my screen. So the state certified teacher to the teacher pursuing to the NBC teacher or assistant principal are both on levels 3. Some LEAs did tackle level 4 in this year's submission, but it's not required until next year. So we don't expect the career ladders to be fully fleshed out until the submission in July 2025. And so just as a reminder, the career ladder establishes a teacher leadership track. And the whole idea is to keep our good teachers in the classroom, allow them opportunities to be leaders and to earn more salary increases, but still remain in the classroom. And as you move up the left side of that level 4, that teacher leadership track, you're going to see that they're still in the classroom, but they are spending more and more time with their colleagues and being that lead or mentor individual who is helping to coach their colleagues as well as remaining in the classroom. And as we go up that left side, we anticipate a smaller and smaller percentage of the teaching population to reach those levels. Reminder that the minimum base salary for teachers is $60,000 by July 1st, 2026, which is right around the corner. And between July 1st, 2019 and this July 1st, 2024 that just passed, districts were required to provide a 10% salary increase for their teachers above the negotiated collective bargaining agreement. Again, as a reminder, there are salary incentives associated with national board certification, and these have been in effect for, I think they went into effect in fiscal year 22. So $10,000 for being on that level 3 is an MBCT. And then if an MBCT is working in a low performing school, that's an additional $7,000 for a total of $17,000. And then there are additional increases for getting what's called maintenance of certification through national board, but they will not kick in until the career ladders are approved and established across the state. There are also salary increases associated with that green portion of level 4 on the teacher leadership track. But again, they will not go into effect until the career ladders are fully fleshed out and approved and implemented across the state. And this board knows better than anyone the flexible teacher licensure opportunities that we have developed in the regulations that were just adopted and became effective in April of this year. Not only do we have the in-district training program, which we're rolling out, but we've eliminated the licensure assessment requirement for our professional and technical education teachers, which we've talked about for many years. Senate Bill 771 during this last session provides Maryland program candidates multiple measures to demonstrate their basic skills proficiency, as well as that performance-based measure, so readiness to enter the classroom. So that is getting rolled out. And of course, advancement through the licensure framework no longer requires that master's degree. So again, the emphasis is on national board in the state now. You can still get a master's degree, you can still earn that advanced professional license, but if you want to move up that career ladder, if a national board certification is available for your area, that is the way to move up that ladder. National board certification continues to be a direct way to renew a Maryland educator license. So we have a new national board support program, new within the last couple of years. It was established in the blueprint. We've had the incentive program, the fee incentive program for many, many years, but this support program is new. So I just wanted to give you an update on where we are with that right now. Each LEA is required by statute to identify an MBC coordinator and MBC facilitators at the local level. And they have. Every LEA has an MBC coordinator, and those individuals work directly with our state national board certification coordinator. And the whole idea of this support program is to provide both statewide and local support for the national board candidates going through the process. So we do have a statewide community of practice. It's done in partnership with the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards. We have a ton of structured technical assistance that's offered for LEA, NBC coordinators and facilitators, as well as just your day-to-day support and guidance that's provided for whichever LEA has questions that day or needs some partnership at that moment. One of the things that we're really excited about rolling out now is the Atlas program, which is a National Board for Professional Teaching Standards program. It's made up of more than 1,400 authentic video cases, and it's NBCTs working in the classroom. And then each video is assessed as accomplished practice according to the National Board. This is exactly what candidates need to see as they're going through the process of developing their portfolios. And we've got 4,500 licenses to start for all of that covers all of the Maryland candidates who are currently in process, as well as the coordinators and facilitators. And again, the Access program also includes written reflections and related instructional material. So again, designed to help that candidate get through that process. So that is paid for at the state level and will be available to all candidates. And then we are holding our first statewide conference for LEA MBC coordinators and facilitators this September, which we're excited about. So bringing together all of those individuals who are supporting our candidates and giving them opportunities and practices to take back to their district. We're doing that in partnership with the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards. And then the educator dashboard. So in 2023, as part of the Maryland Educator Shortage Reduction Act, it does require MSDE to establish and maintain what is called a Maryland Educator Recruitment, Retention, and Diversity Dashboard. And what the law says is that the dashboard has to include key data points for both licensed and non-licensed personnel in public schools, as well as teacher interns. So these are our practicum completers from teacher preparation programs, broken down by the demographics that you see here. Now, status on the career ladder will come later because it's not yet implemented. But the other things have to be on the dashboard by January 1st. So we are working internally to stand this up. And really the idea of this dashboard is the public should be able to see what our diversity in Maryland is like for our teachers, for our administrators, specialists, again, those licensed and non-licensed personnel, as well as who are we placing into our schools from teacher preparation programs? What are their demographics? Are we eventually able to retain them? So as our EVPs on the board know, there is a part of the statute that requires MSDE and MHAC to set recruitment goals for our educator preparation programs. And this is one of the ways one of the resources that we can use to help set those goals. So again, that will be published by January 1st, 2025, and it's updated annually. And then finally, Alex spoke about this morning, so I won't go into it too much, but you can see how the composition of the P20 Collaborative Recruitment and Retention Work Group is broken down here. There are a lot of players, and in fact, this list has grown since I put together this presentation because the AIB has also asked to be a part of this, and of course, we welcome them in. So we will continue to grow, hopefully. And as Alex shared, this really isn't like a one and done type of work group. This is more of a let's continue to tackle this work just as a matter of practice. And then, of course, I have to tote the Teach Maryland marketing campaign because we always want to, as Alex shared, we're trying to rebrand the profession. This is one of the ways that we do that. It's something that we've been doing since 2018. And if you haven't visited the Teach Maryland website, please do so. Feedback is always wanted. How can we make this website better? This is something that is managed by my office. And then I've just included a glossary of terms for your reference. And that is it. So with that, I will open it up for discussion. Miss Bacon.
Hi, thanks, Kelly. I could look at this data all day, so thank you. Do you know how many LEAs successfully submitted career pathway plans by the June 30th deadline or the July 1 deadline?
Career pathway plans or career ladder plans?
The career ladder to the AIB.
I don't, Joy. So I don't want to give you misinformation. I haven't seen them, so I am not sure. Karen?
So if you could go to slide 12, I have two questions, sorry, on two different slides, but slide 12.
Yep.
The pie chart. So in my experience as both a teacher and a board member, and also having been on the board of directors of the teachers union when I was a teacher, that other section, a lot of times you'll see on the staffing report, and we've actually changed in Frederick County, but it used to show like who would resign in a certain time of year. And what it turned out is that they were non-tenured and were basically on the road to not being renewed. And so then they would resign before that would happen. But you don't have a way of accounting for that. So I suspect that's a big portion of that, but you don't have a way of accounting for that, correct?
No, but that makes sense because in the other slide where we look at who's most likely to resign are those 3 or less years, which means that they're non-tenured.
Right. And I would just recommend and say to anybody that a lot of that has come in the past from lack of support. I've seen the way we had a superintendent in Frederick County that told principals, if you don't think you can make this person a teacher, let them go. And so there was, I think, just this great lack of support, which we can't afford to do anymore. And I've seen that tide turn. So just my perception of that. My other question is on slide 24. And one's a comment and one's a question. I'm very happy to see it broken out. Frederick County was putting, earned $17,000. And we used to walk into the state board room and there was a big cutout. And I always looked at that and said, no, that's not right. It needs to say $10,000 with an option. In Frederick County, that extra $7,000 is not even an option for any of our teachers. And I suspect in most of the counties, it is not. So to lump it together is kind of disingenuous. So it needs to stay broken out with an asterisk on the 7,000. That's just, because we had them change it in Frederick County. It's like, nope, can't do that here. But my question to you was, I thought I heard you say a 10% increase in salary. Did I misunderstand? Because Frederick County only could do 4%. I don't know anybody that did 10% this year. We're doing it.
It's not this year. It's between fiscal year 19. What's 2019? It's fiscal year 19, right? July 1st, 2019 through July 1st, 2024. So it wasn't just within 1 year.
Thank you. I was going to say, we've been doing, as I think most counties, incrementally so that we're not hit all at once. And everybody hoped, I think, to do higher this year. And then we were looking at 7. We had to dial it back to 4 financial constraints. Okay, thank you. I just needed clarification on that. Appreciate it.
Sure. Darren.
Well, thanks, Kelly. This was a great presentation. And going back to the previous presentation that you gave on this a couple of years ago, it's nice to see things moving more in a positive direction in some of those areas. So I was really pleased when I looked at it. I want to piggyback on what Karen said, because going back to that slide 12, which was this one with the pie chart, you're right. The large category here of 43%, and then you break it down and you've got other at 22%, really does, I think, play to what I've been so concerned about for a long time, is that we really don't have a good handle on why teachers leave the classroom. And almost everything that we hear is largely anecdotal stories. Karen, for example, just provided one. But to suggest we've got actual data where teachers tell us exactly why they're leaving in very specific terms, and they do that anonymously, you can see this huge hole of information that we have. And I don't know if there's some way, but I've been suggesting this for a long time. We really do need to at least advocate, I think, for a much better exit survey for the LEAs or even the state to use to collect anonymous data. Because if you went forward, and you don't have to go there, Kelly, but if you went to slide 28, that's the P20 recruitment and retention work group. And their charge is largely to overcome the challenges of recruiting and retaining a high quality workforce. Yet you've got a 24%, or rather 22% other here. So here's what I think probably often happens. We start solving problems not knowing what the cause of the problem is. And you just see this over and over again. If you looked at all of the breakdowns here, 27% are people leaving to work in somewhere else in education, although we don't know where that is. Is that public? Is it private? What are they doing? Are they going to work for Pearson, for example, at a publishing company, and that counts? So even that, I don't quite know what that means. But then you see the second largest block here is the 22%, which is we don't know. So we really do have to do a better job, I think, as Karen said, of trying to collect data on exactly why teachers leave before we try and start to solve the problem, because everything we've done to solve the problem generally hasn't worked. And I think it's because we're not using data correctly. We're not using data to identify the cause of the problem and then coming up with a solution. We're all telling stories about, well, they've gone on to have a baby, or the people in my school do this. You need hard data. So that's, I'm sorry to be on that soapbox again, but these two slides to me are so connected. And that black hole there, I don't know, if there's some way we can work on fixing that, that would be great. So I applaud what Karen pointed out there. The other thing I thought was also impressive on a very positive note, if we were looking at slide 15, which is where you're looking at the people coming in through traditional versus alternative programs. You'll recall that one of the things this board did that was controversial, and I really think we have to keep tabs on how it's working out, is creating that in-district pathway, which the LEAs, I think, are just now starting to wrap their minds around. But one of the driving forces in that was the fact that most people of color, which we desperately need, you saw those gaps, are not coming in through traditional pathways. So the in-district pathway was a way we were hoping, and this was the genesis of us bringing this to the table. This was one of the things that we were hoping would help address that and play on that. That's data we know. They don't come in through this other pathway. So I think this board has done something, I think, pretty innovative to try and fix this, or at least help it. So I think it's really important for us to keep tabs on, is that being used? How is it being used? And what pathways, what do they look like? So I know we're in its infancy now, but I just thought that was interesting. So I just pointed that out. To me, that was a really good thing. And seeing finally more people going into schools of education for these programs and completers, that is such good news, because we just, in my mind, can't sustain where we are right now. The other thing, and then I'll be done, and I appreciate your indulgence in me talking so much. But if we went back to slide 22, this is another area where I have really strong questions, because if you look at it, there were 1,626 MBCTs actively teaching, but we have 3,200. So why are we, and maybe this is a complete misreading, and Kelly, please help me. But just looking at that, it looks as though close to half of all the people who have MBCs don't stay in the classroom. Is that accurate, or do we know that, or do we know why those numbers look the way they are? Because if it is, that's very concerning, because we're about to spend a whole lot more on this.
So I don't think we can say that. We don't know. I will tell you that National Board's data is completely self-reported. And the way that their system works is when you go in to register and you provide all of your information down to where you're working at the school level. It is the responsibility of that individual to go in and change that information if they want the National Board to know if they've moved, if they've taken another job. So I think that we need to really look at that data with a grain of salt, because we don't know. We often find in the fee incentive program that data is inaccurate, because I don't know about you, but I don't often keep track of all the places that I've registered and go back and tell them when I've changed jobs or I've moved or I have a different last name. So I don't think we can say that, Darren. The bottom line is we don't know. We don't know if it's truly 3,200, and we don't know if it is 3,200, why those individuals are not in our Maryland classrooms. Is it because some of them are in central office? Is it because some of them have left the teaching profession? Is it because some of them are working in private schools? All of those factors could be at play here. We just don't know.
Okay, and that makes me feel better. I'm kind of happy that we don't know, because mine was a little more pessimistic. I think as we go forward, if we begin to truly see if the blueprint and the career ladder is working, that's data we actually do need to know, because the idea was the only way you can advance in teaching is to leave the classroom. The more money and prestige you have is directly related to how little time you can spend face to face with the student, and that's what I see the career ladder as trying to fix. We want those people to stay and move into positions of leadership. So when they get the MBC, do they do that? Do they stay? That's going to be data that's vital to telling us whether the blueprint's working the way it's supposed to as it gets implemented. So, and that's for another day, I'm sure, but it's just something that slide made me think about. All right, and I'll yield my time. And by the way, Melita did have to leave. So anyway, so we're just continuing in her absence if you don't see her.
Before I turn it to Garima, I did want to point out, it's not on this slide, but I can tell you, because we run the data through our office, that interestingly enough, Maryland last year did 25% of National Board's business. That's how many individuals enrolled in a candidacy in Maryland. We supported the National Board by providing them 25% of their business last year. So I expect, and for those of you who don't know National Board, it's a multi-year process. You can do it in as little as a year, but you can take up to potentially 5 years. So it's not as if we know everybody that enrolled in the candidacy this year is going to be an MBCT next year. It's not that simple, but we do expect to see, hopefully, a large uptick of NBCTs who achieve this December. Garima.
Yes, thank you so much. That was a wonderful presentation. Just like I could sit next to Joy and just dig into this data all day long too. So this is great. Echoing what Darren shared about making sure we're solving for the right problem, right? Figuring out what some of those black boxes are, so we can make sure that our efforts are directed in the right place. So totally agree with that. I also want to say I just really love the collaboration between recruitment and retention, because I feel like for far too long we looked at both in silos. The two, the left arm and right arm weren't like speaking to each other. And so like I love that collaboration now and the work of the working group. I wonder about the opposite of exit interviews, like looking at teachers who have been staying, effective teachers in the classroom who've been staying for a while, and understanding the reasons why they're staying, because I think that data would be just as beneficial. A number of years ago, I was working for TNTP. This is when I had an opportunity to work with Kelly and Alex and others. And we had done a study with Baltimore City Public Schools on recruitment and retention, and found that the recruitment problem was a retention problem. And in that did a deep dive with principals to really understand like what practices were principals employing in buildings to retain their high performing teachers, surveyed many teachers, and many teachers we found simply weren't asked to come back the next year. Effective teachers that principals just weren't really focused on literally were never asked, hey, you're a value add to this building, please come back next year. It's free, right? So, I say that to say, like, I wonder if, there's any data collected on why we're keeping teachers, so we could potentially replicate some of those practices. B, if we have any data on retention by school, like even within each LEA, do we see that there are higher pockets of retention at certain schools than others? Like might that give us important information? And C, finally, if we'd ever thought about like incentivizing principals that are engaging in practices that are retaining teachers in the classroom. So yeah, just three things that I'm thinking about. But this was really an incredible presentation, and love looking at this data.
Kelly, could I add to that?
Darren, our internet went out here and just came back on, so go right ahead.
Okay, all right, thank you. Let me put my hand down. Well, thank you, I appreciate that. One thing I would point out as well, Garima, did I say your name right? Okay, great. Is that one of the things, and you may well be aware of this, so you can stop me if you need to, but we did add in the new regs, in the PDPs for administrators, that they do, in order to renew, have to have some experiences with strategies and retention. So that opens up that door, I think, to perhaps even incentivization, the way you were suggesting. So to me, we're right on the same page with that. We've actually, I think, thought about that a little bit. And then into your question about collecting data more in a positive way, what causes teachers to stay? Several years ago, when we did the TEL survey in Maryland, in the creation of that survey, and I was one of the people that served on the group that kind of helped, when we were working with the National Teacher Center, there were a series of questions on that survey that you could not change. And that's because the survey was given in multiple states, and you could make it match, specifically the needs of your state, but there was a battery of questions you could not change. And those were the questions that correlated to the highest level of teacher retention. And they were trying to use it across the state. And I still have the articles and the data behind all of that. And those did turn out to be, I think, very effective at showing schools that had the highest turnover, states that had the highest turnover rates, and so forth. There were about 5 questions. And a lot of them were positive. Are you seen as a professional in your job? Are decisions made in a collaborative way? Are you treated as a professional? And while they were perception questions, they proved to be very telling about why people stay. And someone, the example you gave, someone going to me and saying, you're a great teacher, I'm hoping you're staying, is just that level of being treated as a professional. So there are ways, and we have done it before in Maryland, where we've gained data at the school level of strategies that seem to work nationwide and can be backed up with data. So I'm just throwing that out because I think it's interesting. And as chair, as acting chair now, since Melita left, I'll throw it open for more questions, and thank you for your patience with me.
I'm going to jump in because sometimes you can't see my yellow hand near my Towson yellow. So let me
I didn't see it. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me just say, echo everyone's compliments. Kelly, as usual, the presentation, the slides were fabulous. I already have several folks I'm going to pass this on to, and a note as to when we started talking about, because a company presentation was great too. This was going back to Darren's comments before Garima. If she wasn't new, I would have jumped in to cut her off to make the point to connection. But I was going to ask you, because I know you and your office has offered to do outreach, and you've done some of the outreach. I think you mentioned, you gave us a little update at the May presentation as you roll out the new regs and try to get all the practitioners, give them a better understanding of how the rollout is going. I was going to ask you, on page 24, you have a fabulous chart there about the career ladder. Over the past year, in going into my professional development schools, there's a lot of, I'm in Howard County, so as you could see from the data, there are a lot of teachers who are actively working on NBC, and a lot of them are my past grads. That's one of the fabulous things about working in a county for so long, being a representative in PDS, that I get to go and visit all my past graduates, and many of them serve as mentors. But people still have a lot of questions about NBC, and they know that it's important for them to understand it. If you could put that chart on the right side in a PDF, then I would be able to take it literally around, and as questions come up this year in my weekly visits to all my PDS schools to visit my interns, I'd be able to show this and say, hey, this is where you go, but this is you don't have to Darren's point, you don't have to leave the classroom to be incentivized monetarily. And there are a lot of ways that you can be a leader in the classroom, because I think you were right, Kelly, when you said that a lot of teachers are under the misunderstanding that you have to leave the classroom in order to climb that ladder. So I have a request. That'd be fabulous if you could provide us all with a PDF of that one. We could all carry it around with the URL too, to be able to advertise this better. Thanks.
Debbie, I agree with that as well, because it's also gone through a lot of revisions, and if you're not careful, you pull up the old chart, which I've been in a lot of meetings where they do. So yeah, if we could get that, that would be fantastic. Any other questions, comments?
Hello, my hand's been up for a while, but you might not have been able to see it.
Oh,
But
and
I'm
I
glad
did
that I'm glad that I'm going last, because I wanted to wait and ask my questions if there were questions that other people didn't ask. First, I want to thank Kelly and her team with this helpful information. Maybe you can imagine the number of questions that we all receive, and so having something that is comprehensive is helpful for us as we share the information around the state and all help try to recruit and retain high quality teachers. Do you mind going to slide like 3 or 4? Yeah, that's perfect. Actually 4. Perfect. So for slides 4 and 5, and also 11, we have the race ethnicity trends, but it doesn't have the same race categories as some of the data that you have in slide 15. And I wondered, is it because those data weren't available? For example, you know how the census categories increased, and we also have access to, for example, when your team presents, sometimes they'll even share in the diversity report, First Nations groups, etc. And you see you have the 2 or more categories here. I just wondered about if we could think about going forward, the trend data for race ethnicity, casting just a wider net. If we have the numbers, sometimes those numbers are so small that, the trend data is hard to even pull out. But if so, if we might want to consider that as we're all trying to, just show our data as detailed as possible. And I wanted to ask that and just share that with you. I'll pause it. I don't know if you had a comment, because I have a couple other questions, Kelly.
Yeah, that's a great point. So just to let everybody know, it's my understanding that the race ethnicity categories are actually changing this year, and they are more robust. The reason that there's a difference between this slide and the other slide is the other slide came from the data that we from our educator preparation programs.
And this is staff data?
Came from the staffing data, but I
Awesome.
believe that they will match starting 24, 25.
Okay, and that's perfect. Because speaking of staff data, I know that two people have already talked about the importance of slide 12. And I was thinking about, we consider, like Darren even mentioned a survey that he was a part of where there were just some items that you couldn't change because they were, shared with other states. I wonder if there are categories that other states are using that would help us drill down at that other, or if we could look at, for the staffing report, some of what those answers are or could be, or populate some other options just so that we could drill down, because that 22% is pretty, significant, just to help us get at some of the challenges that Garima was mentioning when saying, like, let's make sure that we're solving the problem that we want to solve. It's just an idea for us to consider, for the reasons described. So I hope that's helpful for all of us. And then on slide 14, during the okay, so and this question is really about any of the slides that show some of the teacher preparation programs. I'm obviously really interested in the trends. In the literacy presentation at the state board meeting, it was reported that 1 out of 7 of the teachers are coming from the EPPs, but that data isn't really reflected in this presentation. And I just wondered, if we could also look at or find out like what that ratio is, because it's a great way, for us to continue to let our colleagues know, let's, work together, and just having that ratio would be important. Again, that was a ratio shared during the literacy initiatives presentation at the state board meeting on the 25th. And I was just looking for something like that, because here what I've seen is that the teacher preparation programs continue to graduate large numbers, as we should. And I just wanted to know more about what the ratio might look like. And that could benefit all of us. And we could also circle back to the state board. So again, thank you for this information. I don't know if you remember that, but I'm not expecting you to, because you're in a lot of meetings, so just share. And then slide 16, I'm going to keep going, and I don't have a choice because my computer's on. On slide 16, okay, so this is an interesting slide. I noticed that the numbers do add up to 2,144, but because this graphic is depicting vacancies from September 2022, I think, and overlaying it with completers as of May, June 2022. Is that right?
Correct.
Because it seems like those completers would have already been hired and not reflected in the day one vacancies, but I might be misunderstanding what the data show.
So this slide shows the completers from May or January, anytime in the 21-22 school year. And then the first day of school vacancy data of 22-23.
Okay, so these people vacated their positions by day one.
I don't know if we could say that. I can only say that on day one, this is the number of vacancies that we had across the state.
Okay. Okay, I'll keep thinking it. Because in my mind, well, I'm interpreting it as the vacancies in 2022, overlaying it with completer data as of May, June 2022, those completers would seem like they would have already been hired before day one, or that the alternative completers are already employees. But so having them a part of the vacancy equation seems, I don't.
The right way. So
I am. Okay, good.
There is a little bit, and we are making assumptions, but there is a little bit of assumption that if we've got May completers, we're hoping that they are hired by September.
Okay,
and
got
so
it.
what I'm trying to demonstrate here is just based on total numbers, and we know that there are a lot of caveats to this data, right? But just looking at total numbers, if we, in an ideal world, and there was a direct correlation between, and we know this isn't true, but every single completer gets a job in a Maryland district, we would still need 230 more to fill all the vacancies that next year.
Okay, so this brings me back in my mind, and you don't have to go back, but to that slide 12 where we were looking at, why our teachers are leaving and some of the other data that has been so helpful. Darren mentioned some work he had done. Oh my goodness, our new colleague, Garima. Yes, Garima mentioned some work she had done. Our state started a survey a few years back. Kelly, you may remember when Carla was working with our state, where high school students across the whole state were going to receive a survey to understand why they might want to be a teacher. I say that because it sounds like we have why people are leaving, right? It sounds like we also maybe have why people are coming, or we have some old data. Our university shared to several boards some data that we had on when students come to a university and choose teacher education, or why they may or may not, that we could also use. But having that one segment, like right, backing it up to high school students, I think is going to help us. I know we decided not to deploy that data, but I wonder if we might want to take a look at that again. Because it's one thing to say, okay, well, colleges aren't producing teachers, but there's a step before that. A lot of people have decided what they want to be before they come to us. And so working with our high school counterparts are getting a sense of what our students are thinking about the profession, and some of the wonderful Teach Maryland marketing that we're doing with high school students just could be fruitful for us. I know we already have this survey, so I'm hoping we don't have to really reinvent the wheel, but it's just an idea that we could use to help our data and help us all in our different roles. Okay, I'm almost done, I promise. Okay, and almost last, for slide 17, do we have the recent data for 22, 23?
Do not.
Okay, we don't. Okay, no problem.
I don't have it prepared, I should say.
Okay, but okay, so and then finally, well, this is next to the last one. Slide 22 has gotten a lot of traction. If we can go back to it. In the last version of this report, which was in 2022, the numbers of National Board were, I think, 1,708. So I know it's taking a dip, but I wondered if we could look at, and going forward, where National Board certified teachers, or whether or not National Board certified teachers are working in some of the high need schools that you showed earlier in your report when you were looking at where, sorry, it's later when you were showing us where some of the alternatively prepared teachers are working, where some of our conditional teachers are working. Knowing where our National Board certified teachers are working, and particularly if they're working in some of the high need schools, I think is going to help us understand our readiness for schools to be aligned to the career ladder.
Yep.
So it's just a data point. Okay.
No, we can collect that, and we will be able to in the future report how many NBCTs are working in low performing schools.
Super duper awesome. And then the last, whatever slide you had on Atlas, slide 26. We use Atlas at the University of Maryland because we use the EdTPA, given the alignment that EdTPA offers to National Board, or there's a lot of alignment there. And I just wondered, is the licensure or the slots purchased only for LEAs, or are IHEs a part of that budget item? I just want to know, so I'll know whether we need to, because we also use it to prepare our teacher candidates. So just a question, and maybe it's just for LEAs, and that's fine too, but I figured I'd ask since it's an opportunity. And that is my last question. Thank you so much.
All right.
Did I cut out? Oh, did we get an answer to the question about whether IHEs are included?
Sorry, I froze.
Oh, I thought I froze.
No, it's me. It's me.
Okay.
I'll put you in touch with our National Board coordinator because I don't know.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you.
I have one quick.
Oh, go ahead, Melissa, please.
I have one quick question going back to what Dr. Shockley just said about some of the information from our high school students. We have the Teacher Academy of Maryland, those high school programs, and I know they're really big here in Charles County. Do we have any information? Do we have any data from our TM programs? How many of those students go into education prep programs? How many of those students get hired in the state? Do we have any way of tracking that? Is Kelly frozen again?
Person to talk about it, so I'll throw that out there. But MLDS has actually done some recent presentations on research that they are studying for TAM. And if you're interested, I can absolutely provide that information to the board.
I'm also on the final round for a grant that will be studying that as well. So should we get the funding, I'll be super happy to share and report.
That would be great. Good luck. And thank you for those questions. Don't ever feel bad about asking lots of questions. That's what we're here for. So ask away. And those were great questions, I think, too. My apologies if I miss calling on anybody. I think Melissa is much better at this than I am, Melita, I mean. But anyway, if I missed anybody, please jump in. You can come off mic if you have any other questions that you need to ask. All right, I do think that we would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge the sort of troubling information that we see on slides 20 and 21. And that's looking at how some of our highest need schools are having people with less experience. And I'd love to say that's a new problem, but it's not, because I've seen charts like this over and over again. So in the future, I think as well, our board, as well as everybody else who's thinking about these issues, can try and think about ways to address these gaps that are in here. I know we've tried very much to incentivize, and we continue to do that, to put our best teachers in our lower performing schools or higher need schools and so forth. But yet we're still seeing this kind of persistence of the chart like that. So that's very troubling to me. So I don't ever want us to lose sight of that simply because we've seen it before. All right. So, I had one more question too. Kelly, if you're there and can hear me. Oh, good. You're moving. I think maybe in the report we had a couple of years ago, we had a chart that kind of looked like this, but it showed us the number of conditionals by LEA. Do we break that out? Because that might also be a good slide to include in the future.
So I didn't include it in the presentation, but I did actually give it to this board as a standalone, and I'm happy to resend it. It's a chart. It's big. So it's probably easier to look at as that PDF, but I can absolutely resend it.
Okay, that's great. And I kind of remember that now that you mentioned it. So I do appreciate that. All right, let me pause again. Does anybody have any other questions? And you don't have to put your hand up, just come off mic and ask away. All right, well, Kelly, I echo everything the board has said. This is a fantastic presentation. The data is put together so well, it's so clear and easy to understand. And I so appreciate you doing this, not just this time, but also 2 years ago, so we have something to compare. And again, I saw a lot of hope in this because I saw us moving in positive directions. And I just want to, all of our work needs to continue to do that because it all contributes to attracting better people and our best candidates to be in the classroom, stay in the classroom, and work with kids that really need them. So I appreciate all this data. It helps us make a lot of important decisions. The other thing too, this is what I was also thinking for the August meeting. What we might want to do is take this out. Debbie, you were talking about doing this as well. Dr. Gartland, sending it out to the people, sharing it with people that we represent and so forth, and then have a little time at our next meeting to bring back any questions that people might have generated if we share it and people see it and so forth. So maybe we could add a small piece of time to the agenda for our next meeting in case there are some follow-ups. Because I'm sure the more we look at this, the more we'll have some other additional questions. So I'd like to have time for that. Is that at the pleasure of the board that we leave a little time for that? I'll just look for body language. All right, I see a lot of heads nodding, so I think that's a good thing to do. And you know what else we might want to try and do, and this is not to give Kelly, you or your staff more work, but just as we're starting to implement the new regs for certification, it might be good to have sort of an overview of what some of the LAAs are doing to sort of help teachers navigate through the new regs and the new professional development points and things like that. Like, how are they presenting it to staff? Because I know that's going to be a little bit of a challenge because it's such a culture shock. And as teachers come back now for the next school year, I would imagine this is one of the first times a lot of them will start to wrap their head around it. So anyway, if there's any reporting out, we could just do it as a go around the room kind of thing. But if Kelly, if you have information, I know you've been meeting with multiple groups as to how they're handling it. That might be good to look at.
Absolutely. I will add that as an agenda item, and I will tell you up front that we'll probably have to rely on members from the board, from the LEA community to come back with the specifics. I can certainly provide information on how the department is working with our LEAs, but as far as exactly how they're taking that information and relaying it to their own employees, I don't have a good handle on that right now, Darren.
Okay, and that's understandable. Anything we can get, just to get a finger on the pulse of how this is working, I think would be good because it's so massive. And I just, I'm concerned about the overload that teachers are going to face when they see it. But I know we can do it, but it would be good to get some feedback. All right, I believe, and I'm going to ask one more time, are there any other questions or comments? Joys or concerns for the group? All right, well, seeing none, I believe we've already set our agenda with a couple of modifications. And of course, we'll leave this open to any communication that Melita might have with Kelly. If she needs to make any more changes, of course, we'll leave that open to her. And I'll, of course, brief her on what happened after she had to leave. And if she happens to be back viewing this, we hope everything went well at the dentist. All right. I hope everybody had a great 4th of July and enjoy the rest of the summer. Hopefully we'll get a break from some of the heat and so forth. Debbie, did you have a question or are you waving goodbye? All right. Well, without objection, I will call an end to the meeting at 11:32. Any objections? All right. Then we stand adjourned. I look forward to seeing everybody in August. Actually, I'll have trouble getting here in August. So I'll see everybody, I think, in September, but Melita will be here. All right, everyone, have a wonderful summer. Reach out if there's anything you all need. Thank you all so much for logging in today. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.